Welcome back, Marvelites, to the Atomic Mass Games podcast. This is Kyle, joined by my friend Matthew today. Today we have a lot to discuss, so I hope you're excited to talk about some new things that have gone on with Fantasy Flight's Star Wars branding. So without further ado, let's head out.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Is a pathway to many abilities.
Red, green, or red, green, red.
I know.
The doctor will do!
Sorry about the mess.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
General Kenobi.
Let's rearrange some architectures.
Is it possible to learn this power?
I thank you for your hospitality.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
Impressive.
I'll show you the dark side.
Avengers Assemble.
Avengers Assemble, indeed. If you are out of the loop and you don't understand these jokes that we're throwing at you, no, you're not at the wrong podcast. This is still the 801st Star Wars Legion podcast. But if you live under a rock, which I don't imagine you do if you're listening to this podcast, but yes, the rumors are true. Atomic Mass Games has acquired the Star Wars miniature game license. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, I want to gauge our interest here, right? Like, I want to go over, how we feel about this. Matthew, how do you feel about Atomic Mass Games now being in charge of Star Wars miniature games?
I have some mixed feelings, for sure. I think for a lot of us, this came out of the blue. And that's just kind of like right off the cuff stuff. I guess just to go further into it, so the license has always been with Asmodee, but what's going to be happening is from here on out, moving forward, they're overseeing everything, and that means a lot of stuff. But mixed feelings about it, and I think that's kind of how most of the community feels as well.
So Asmodee as the parent company has been over FFG, who has done board game. You know FFG, but they have had the Star Wars license for miniature games and Star Wars games for a long time. So now that shift in power, while it's still under Asmodee's umbrella, it's now shifting to their other company that they own now, Atomic Mass Games, which makes the Marvel Crisis Protocol game, which is why we make Marvel jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know. First of all, I'm sure you guys can all at home can kind of get a sense that just by how we're talking about this, like, we're making jokes to make do, because this is kind of harsh news, because there's a lot of things that have come out and come to light that we're not really sure are confirmed, but are kind of sad. There's some silver linings overall, but there's some things that we can't wait to jump into and dissect. It's kind of one of those things where I just don't know. We need more time to understand and fully come to understanding of what's going on. So yesterday, as of this recording, which is today, November 17th, they released a press release announcing all of this. But then today they followed up with their community post, so to speak. I guess this might be like their equivalent of a community post, shared to atomicmassgames.com. It's titled "This is Where the Fun Begins," and then it reads: Atomic Mass Games launches into the Star Wars galaxy, or the galaxy of Star Wars miniatures. Yesterday's announcement that Atomic Mass Games will be taking responsibility for the continued development of Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars Armada, and Star Wars Legion represents an exciting development for miniature games in a galaxy far, far away. Right off the bat, I actually want to highlight something here. This is just Star Wars miniature games. Star Wars Rebellion is still FFG. Star Wars Outer Rim is still FFG. In fact, Imperial Assault is still FFG because it's technically a board game by license. Now, I know a lot of people that are fans of Imperial Assault will say, well, they were planning on bringing Imperial Assault back. Does this change anything? More than certainly, it probably changes something. Whether it's going to take longer or shorter now, who knows? Or maybe they do scrap it. Who knows? But time will tell. And then it continues on with this article to say, we spoke with Atomic Mass Games Simone. I'm guessing it's pronounced Simone.
It's one of the two.
Simon or Simone. I'm going to stick with Simone. Simone Elliott, which is the head of studio, and Will Schick, head of production development, to gain more information on what fans can expect in the future and for more background on the factors leading to this reorganization. And it talks about how, they're just going to enter a Q&A. So the question is, why move to atomic mass? And then, do you want to read what someone had to say there?
Yeah, so I'll kind of read the answers here. So, yeah, the question, why move to Atomic Mass Studios? And Simone says, in a word, specialization. Moving to AMG gives us the perfect opportunity to develop our miniatures games in a studio devoted entirely to miniatures, rather than board and card tabletop games. It's a place where these specific types of games can truly thrive. Will tags onto that and he says, and that devotion Simone mentions our singular focus on hobby miniatures is fueled by our team's lifelong passion for creating great games. Combining that passion with the incredibly solid foundation laid by the team at Fantasy Flight is basically like bringing balance to the Force. We have the tools and we have the talent to build on that foundation and take these miniature games even further.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Well, I think this is something that this is where people are grabbing the most positivity out of the entire announcement.
Agreed.
Because this is a massive shakeup, and there's so many questions about what does this mean for production schedule? How does this affect, organized play? Does this affect, the miniatures we already have? Will the game change over time? And the big silver lining that a lot of people are grabbing from here, and I kind of have to agree a little bit, is that Atomic Mass Games, at this point, I guess, a little over a year they've been around, have produced a game that has put out more miniatures than I think I've heard some people say even Armada has, which is crazy to think they've done that. And so the silver lining here is that since they are a miniatures-focused studio, hopefully that means production quality can get even better. Hopefully that means we can start meeting deadlines, lots of things like that. That is maybe one of the silver linings that I've noticed that most of the people are talking about, and I do happen to agree on.
Yeah.
But I do have some questions about the validity of that statement with how fresh of a company they are.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like, we know them as the Marvel guys.
Yeah.
That sits on the shelf next to the Star Wars guys. I think the next little part is where people start getting a little bit more concerned, because now we have to start thinking, oh, these Marvel guys are taking over our Star Wars thing. Well, what does that mean? And so the question posed to these two was, does this mean we should expect changes to X-Wing, Legion, and Armada? And Will says one of Atomic Mass's core philosophies is that there is no finish line. We see ourselves on a lifelong journey of learning and improvement. That's a pretentious way of saying yes. If we're doing the job right and staying true to our ethos as a studio, changes will most certainly happen. But those changes will always be in service of making great games even better. I should also point out that any change process will always be measured and highly considerate. These games may have solid fan bases made up of people who have invested their hard-earned money and, more importantly, their time and creativity into creating armies, squadrons, and fleets that are more unique reflections of who they are. I feel like this one was a personal attack or something. It's like, yeah, we know Kyle painted his whole army Tron themed. We want to preserve that, and I totally appreciate that. But what really gets me is where they're saying, where they're just openly saying, like, we're gonna make changes because we think we can do a great job. And honestly, from a PR standpoint, that is a great thing to say. Like, that shows us that you have confidence in what you're doing, that we can hopefully trust you. And I like it on that aspect. What I don't like about that aspect, though, or about that line, is that what's come out after this article, that apparently Luke, Eddie, and our boys, right? Like, I don't know.
Like Alex.
Davey and Luke Eddy. I kept on wanting to call him Alex Eddy, but I was like, why can't I remember his last name all of a sudden? Anyways, Alex Davey and Luke Eddy might be gone. And that's like a huge blow. They developed this game. They created this game's rules. What do you think? About that statement?
This is where the whole thing is so convoluted for a lot of purposes, because on the one hand, we're still waiting for a rules reference update that's been promised, and I think more now than ever in the game, everybody's waiting for that, because clone balls are just so dominant. Like we talk about how you can beat them, but by golly, it is so hard.
Very popular.
Very popular. It's very strong, and I don't blame anybody for wanting to play them.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have a disproportionate size of the wins when it comes to tournament play. It's interesting because I feel like with that, when they say they need to make changes, I think a lot of people, especially on the Facebook groups that I've been seeing, on the Discords, all over YouTube and Reddit, a lot of people were super positive that when they said changes, they threw up their hands in the air and they went, yes, like rules changes. The people who are experienced at making good rules. But I don't think FFG's dropped the ball that bad on rules.
Yeah.
But on the negative side of things, I kind of like the game feeling how it is. Because in my experience, playing other games, Legion is something extremely unique. The way that it plays, the way that people, use tokens, the way the characters interact, the fact that it's not you take your whole turn. When they say they're going to make changes, I don't want the game to just become Star Wars Crisis Protocol. Like, you texted me that, you said that. I think that's what I'm mostly worried about.
Yeah. I think, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the statement as well, I think that game is all but confirmed going to happen. Like, I think we are going to get a Marvel or a Star Wars Crisis Protocol. But I agree with you. I think, I don't know, it's a shock because on one end you have to say, okay, well, I don't know everything that happens behind FFG and Asmodee doors. Was there something in the development that wasn't working anymore? Is that why they pushed this in the first place? And then you have to think, well, okay, we love Alex and Luke and what they've done for this game. Like, why wouldn't they be involved if these rumors are true? And then you have to think, did they want to be involved if it wasn't with FFG? Were they contractually obligated to stay with FFG? Or, I don't know. Like, there's so many things legally and, quite frankly, politically within a company that we will never have an idea about what goes on. And that's okay. That's their lives, right? Like, I'm more concerned about Luke and Alex than Asmodee as a company, though.
Right?
So
I think we all are. I saw memes floating around today. You sent me some.
Yeah.
People were trying to get a hold of them on Twitter and say hi.
Darth Vader, where is Luke and Eddie? Are they safe?
It seems like hang out, you should go with them. I think one thing that you talked about with the company there that a lot of people brought up also, but I think we kind of don't understand to the big extent is what's the impact that COVID has had on the company. I mean, you remember oh man, when was it? It was it this time last year when there was the people getting laid off at FFG? There was those layoffs.
Actually.
Remember that? And I remember specifically that they said, Legion and other games will not be affected. But then you go into a year. Fast forward around this time, and here we are. But you look at the effect COVID has had, and even working for the company I work for, where we have recently had lots and lots of layoffs when it comes to sales forces and other things, and people who are working outside of the billing department kind of have to keep a little on edge just because each company's trying to put out profitable numbers to attract investors. When you think about that, and you think about the way Asmodee, there were rumors that they've been trying to sell off FFG for a while. You have to wonder how much of it plays into that aspect, or how much of it is that COVID effect, or maybe Asmodee just taking over. I mean, we even look at FFG card sleeves for games, and the changes happened to there. It's interesting to look back and see these hints of where the train was moving. But I think they hit it well enough that we were all pretty blind about it. It's one of those things.
That's a fantastic point.
You know what I mean? And
because they don't do their sleeves anymore. GameGenic does, but that's for Asmodee. But it's a different company. It's not FFG, right? So it's owned by Asmodee.
And then when you look at the bottom of the new boxes that are coming out, it says GameGenic on it. Yeah. So there are these changes that have been happening. But
I'm glad you brought up the COVID part, because that's actually something that I've been thinking about, but I think I finally figured out how to word it. But this is my nightmare scenario that COVID has been hitting FFG really hard. Printing, shipping. Obviously, when was the last time we got minis, new minis?
We gotta think. I think that big release of Staps, ATRTs, and stuff.
And that was in September.
August, yeah.
It's been 3 months. I seem to remember the schedule being way more rapid before COVID. and more plentiful of a release schedule. So like, I don't know. And granted, there's always been shipping problems. Like Operative Luke and Vader got delayed until High Heaven. Right? But what I'm saying is my nightmare scenario is that COVID has hit FFG so hard that they were like caving in on themselves. They couldn't support the game as well as they'd like. Asmodee notices this, but Asmodee also notices that they have a literal cash cow with the Star Wars license being a miniatures games, having 3 of them. And GameGenic is another example of this, where maybe they couldn't support their sleeves anymore because they had to support their other stuff financially. And it's a parent company. It's not like FFG is sitting at a table every day with Asmodee. FFG functions, and then Asmodee just owns, right? So I wonder if there was this point where it was a meeting where they went over these numbers, and they're like, "Well, this isn't going to work anymore. You're not turning enough profit even for COVID." Like I said, this is my nightmare scenario. I hope this wasn't the case, or isn't the case, but I really hope it wasn't Asmodee just saying, "You know what? Get rid of those 2. We're going to shift it over to people that are cranking out miniatures literally every month, and then we'll make our money back. We'll start making money again." I really hope that's not the case, but the more that comes out, the more I'm afraid that might be true, and I hope it's not.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things where we'll probably never know.
Yeah, unless if we get a hit piece from someone inside.
Oh, I know, right? Well, and there have been those floating around Reddit, especially. I think it was super early this morning. It came out on Reddit that an ex-employee had posted about the whole thing, and that's where the rumors started, and people started saying they confirmed it. To an extent, I do think it is kind of pseudo-confirmed now, but I wouldn't 100%.
Yeah, I'm not going to go around saying that they're fired and then be an idiot when tomorrow that's like, "No, guys, we're fine."
Right.
But the fact that they haven't, like, I've been paying attention to Luke Eddy's Twitter. He hasn't posted much today or yesterday. Anytime I've seen someone tweet at him, he doesn't respond, which normally is actually really interactive with the community. And so either he's under NDA for some reason, or he just doesn't want to talk about it. And that's all the respect. Like, you have every right not to talk to us about it. It is your life. There's a boundary. I get it. But like, I think that's also kind of telling when you don't talk about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think exactly along those same lines as you, where I think no words is saying a lot more than actually saying something. Yeah. If you were safe, you'd come out and be like, "No worries, boys. I'm moving to Seattle." I think that the hard part is, reason we're both kind of worked up about it is because I think there's a lot of positives to this change. But then on the negative side, when it's somebody who makes something you love, you feel bad for those people, and you hate hearing about the big changes in their life. The one thing that does give me kind of a little bit of hope is Alex Davey before did a lot of work on X-Wing. Yeah. He did a lot of work. And so FFG, when we think about all the products they've had, they mostly have had the same people. They just reorganize their corporation a little bit and say, "Hey, you're in charge of this now. You're in charge of this." And that explains why they get super spread thin. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously that's how it goes. But I guess what I'm saying is, here's to hoping that maybe they're saying, "Alex, we love what you did there. Let's bring you onto the Arkham Horror card game team. Yeah. Let's bring you onto the Twilight Imperium team." Yeah. Or, "Alex, you've done a fantastic job. We want you to reboot Imperial Assault." Especially because with Descent having a new edition coming out, I do see I expect we'll see his name on more products. I don't think you take two people like Alex Davey and Luke Eddy, who are so talented like this, and throw them to the wind. And we've even seen with
that's a good point.
Marvel Crisis Protocol, the guys that made that game come from P3. Like, once you're in the industry, you kind of stay there.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like, I don't foresee Atomic Mass games, or more so Asmodee. More so Asmodee. I don't see their image improving, because right now, if you're a Privateer Press fan and you're excited for Crisis Protocol to come to Privateer Press because you're really loyal to that company and you support what they do, and then all of a sudden your game that you're excited for gets sent off to Asmodee instead, and now they get to reap the benefits and your community doesn't have it, that feels bad. But now, on the other side, the people that are receiving it are also kind of upset. They're like, "Well, what happened to the OGs?" And like you said, like, it's not. We don't know enough to say, like, "Oh, they're completely gone and they're not involved anymore." I do like your idea about the Imperial Assault, which also makes me wonder, hey, we don't really have a Mansions of Madness Star Wars equivalent, right? Like, Imperial Assault was a dungeon crawler, but still a little bit more skirmishy still, you know? Whereas like Lord of the Rings and Mansions of Madness are really, really, really similar. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't played enough games of Imperial Assault to know, but maybe they could do something like that.
Oh, you're saying like a Journeys in Middle Earth,
Yeah,
Star Wars.
but like Star Wars, Journeys in the Outer Rim.
Well, you see, that's the kind of thing that I feel like
Scumability.
Alex Davey and Luke Eddy could be totally down for. And
Yeah.
I would love to see them to continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we love their product,
Love
so if they did something else, I don't know.
Well, it's just it's just funny to think about how Alex was like involved in X-Wing 1.0, and that's what got me my start into minis games. And then he basically was the guy that created Legion, and that's
Yeah.
my absolute favorite right now. Like whatever he does, I love.
Yeah, I do want to bring up something that you actually brought up earlier before the podcast was there's going to be a lot of people that are concerned about Legion as a whole, whether it exists or not, or whether it's going to survive. And you had mentioned like, well, there's other things that are going to go before Legion does. Like Armada might be on the chopping block before Legion. I mean, I would think because Armada seems to be running out of content to do, but
Yeah.
who knows? A second edition might help. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think a second edition would do wonders for that game. I think the idea of a second edition, we could talk about that in a little bit, but I do think Legion for the time being is safe how it is. I mean, yeah, I agree. I don't think there's too much going to change right there. I mean, we knew Alex Davey was working on like what Wave 10 forever ago.
Oh,
That was
another
forever
thing.
ago.
That's another thing.
And
It's
so
like
what wave is he on now? They could have been on 11, 12. They probably had a road path. I imagine while Atomic Mass is taking over, you just follow that same path.
yeah.
till
Well, I
you're
would
ready,
hope,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Like, because there was that I can't remember exactly where it came from, but there was a statement floating around that they had ideas to make that game last for 10 more years, just on content alone.
I think that was one of their interviews.
Yeah. So like, hopefully they use that. It's not hopefully. Hopefully it's not a George Lucas Disney scenario where it's like, here's my scripts. Oh, great. Rip that up.
We'll get the book that's like Will Schick's memoirs.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt bad ruining like Alex Davey's game.
It's like I can't. It's just a notebook. It's like with a big heart. It's like Alex and Luke forever, and it's like all their ideas for Legion inside.
It's like ripped in half now. Oh, no.
It's so sad and makes me cry. So I almost couldn't say it.
Gosh.
But yeah, I would. Gosh, a true love just ruined. Anyways, but changes, right? Future. They also addressed that too within this article as well. The question was, does that include, like all this stuff, does that include new Star Wars miniature games? Can we expect to see any additional titles? And then it said, while we're hyper-focused on our current games, we're always thinking of new ones too. Will and I have talked a lot about what we can do, or how we can create new Star Wars miniature games that will excite fans and immerse them in the stories they love so much. The galaxy far, far away is a really big place with a lot to explore. It doesn't take Emperor Palpatine's Force abilities to foresee that it is just the beginning for Star Wars miniature games. And that's where we get the idea of like, Star Wars Crisis Protocol is 100% happening, huh?
Oh, like I wouldn't be surprised if they already have their team kind of partially working on it.
Which, I mean, like, I say, but I don't mean that in I'm not disgusted. I would love to see it. Like, like more Star Wars games. Awesome.
You'd really love to see it, yeah.
Like, I would love to see what they could do with that. The only thing is like, I don't want it to feel like a carbon copy, you know? Unless if I can fight Spider-Man versus Obi-Wan, because that'd be sick. That would actually be tight.
Rip Spidey.
Oh, well, what if they just did a Disney, like, just in general? Like, then you could have James P. Sullivan doing the bunk bed maneuver with Obi-Wan on top, and
Obi-Wan's on the top bunk.
he has the high ground. Obviously, he's on the top bunk.
That's hilarious because like they actually have other games like that, like Disney Infinities and things.
Right.
Where it could work. I mean, I don't know if I see it going that far with all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But
well, let me tell you what. I don't think you know this about me, but I'm a huge Disney Infinity fan.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, when they stopped making that game, and for those of you at home who don't know what this is, it was a Toys to Life video game they made, about 5-6 years ago now. It started maybe close to 8 or 9 years ago now. And they made Disney figures, Pixar mini, like it was you put the figure on a platform and then it plugged into your game, and that figure was in your video game. And you could interact in different ways. They did Star Wars, they did Indiana Jones. They did. Well, no, they didn't do Indiana Jones. They did Lone Ranger. But yeah, they did all sorts of stuff that Disney owned, and it was really cool. I was a huge fan of it, even if the gameplay was kind of childish. It was cool to have these figures. Fun fact: I own almost every single mini for that game. The only ones I'm missing, after a friend hooked me up with the Hulkbuster Iron Man, is actually Kanan Jarrus, a regular Kanan Jarrus.
Oh, yeah, because they did like all the Rebels.
Yep. They did Kanan, and they did the Rebels. I have the one where he lights up his lightsaber, but I don't have like the regular one. I was actually super into collecting for that game. Anyways, that's besides the point. If it could get something like that, I would be so down because obviously I love that game.
Well, I guess maybe it's a good time to bring up the topic of, do they also mean that we could get a 2.0 in the future?
Well, I think as far as popularity, as demand, both within the game and by fans of the game, I think second edition is like inevitable, regardless of who is going to maintain control of it. I think a 10th edition is inevitable. This game will continue to get iterations upon iterations upon iterations because it's a Star Wars miniatures game that is extremely successful, highly detailed. Shoot, like, it gives Warhammer a run for its money, you know? Like, man, it's just really cool to see, like, FFG did something cool with Legion. Oh, well, now Warhammer's kind of incorporating that idea too, so that's kind of cool to see, you know? And I'm not saying Warhammer's ever going to be not as popular as it is. It'll always be king, probably. But I think as long... I don't know. That's, man, maybe I don't know, actually, because the old miniatures game got scrapped.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing to think about, because there's so many positives to moving to Atomic Mass games.
Yeah.
Like, you get the focus there, which means maybe we can get production out on time. Maybe we can move forward. You can get little bits of rules changes here and there. I don't really want the core game to change, but I could see kind of a trimming the fat sort of thing. Because one of the big things that's a big... I keep saying big a lot. But X-Wing 2nd Edition, I've been playing a lot of that recently because during COVID, you don't really get a lot of times to get big Legion games in. But 45 minutes to an hour, you can get a game of X-Wing in. And coming back to that, I can see where trimming the fat and taking the points off the cards has allowed them to balance that game to a point where it really does become a lot about skill.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that even making a slimmer, trimmed-down version of Legion where you keep the core mechanics, you get your 2 actions, it's still activation-based, but maybe you're able to fix a couple keywords here and there, or maybe even take the keywords off the cards completely and you have to reference like an app, something like that. So that there's not like a 90-page, which
is
RRG.
interesting too, because
nice
that's like something Alex Davey was actually very against doing. He didn't want something in a game where people would have to look up the card. Like, I distinctly remember his interview with Legion Academy where he said, he's like, I want in 3 or 4 years, if someone pulls out that box off the shelf and they buy it, even if it's a mini from when the game first started, this person can still understand how to play it.
Oh, so at least like they knew what Clone Trooper was on the back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like I actually am very sympathetic and in agreement with that. I don't think I'd like that. I would love to see an app where you can reference everything in one place, just for those like, hey, how does this interact? I would love an app where I can list build that's like streamlined and not third party and officially supported. Like, I would love all of that. But I don't know if I'd want it to take place of like, I don't know, maybe it has competitive point updates. That's cool.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I
think for me, I've just loved the way X-Wing 2nd Edition has done it.
Yeah.
And I really think this is a good opportunity for Armada itself to kind of push forward. Because we've heard rumors about an Armada 1.5, and maybe it's nice to get that started.
Yeah.
But I could see within a year, maybe they say, hey, Armada 2.0 comes out.
Sure.
Where maybe the rules on the cards are still the same, but the points values are taken off. The upgrade slots are taken off, so you can adjust that as you go. Little things like that that I really have enjoyed, and still have your pre-makes if you just want to play quick.
And I do real quickly before we move on to something else. But while I am against it, I totally acknowledge that we're entering a time where more and more things are digital. Like video games, movies, tabletop games are getting more and more electronic, for better or for worse. but there will. I mean, I think it is inevitable, even though if I might not like it. I think we see this with Descent, how the new Descent is gonna be like completely dependent on the app. I think it's only a matter of time before Legion is like, no, cards are a waste of money. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone can download the free app. Just do it. You're an adult, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. I don't like it.
Well, it's funny watching people with 40K do the same thing because they tell you to buy the book, but whenever I play, it's mostly just people being like, "Hey, I've got my phone with me. All the rules are here. Hey, my entire codex is here. All my points are on this app." It's just it's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. It's easy for them to if they need a hot fix, like an error, like in something, like maybe something's not playing as intended, or maybe like there was something happened in the community where it's like, oh, we don't want that to happen ever again, so they can hot fix something within a couple weeks. Like I get it. Like I don't know, but
yeah,
I guess overall, I still want to kind of get a gauge for your feelings about this. It's not really an acquisition. It's more like a shift. Because I'm actually getting really tired of people saying that FFG lost the Star Wars license. No, I doubt FFG as a company even cared to have a Star Wars license. It was totally just like the developers of the games that actually cared, I think.
Yeah.
But anyways.
I actually agree with that completely because I feel like some people are taking it overboard. And that comes, in my mind, to the big change of going to Atomic Mass Games, the name of who is actually in charge of it. But I don't know if you remember this. I think it was last year at Gen Con when Andrew Navarro, the old head of FFG, called up the head of Atomic Mass Games to start giving their presentation and introduce who they were. That was a super big moment because I remember hearing about that, and in his little discussion, his speech he gave, Andrew Navarro, previous to that, or near the end of it, had talked about how much he enjoyed fighting for the Star Wars license to get that for Asmodee. Well, for FFG at the time, and then Asmodee acquired them. And I can kind of see the seeds of change being planted then and there because then Andrew Navarro left. All these other people left. But so it's not really... I agree with you completely. I've seen where it's going. It seems to be a trimming of the fat, moving the pieces to where they need to be. Like GameGenic, handle all of this stuff. Do all the minis here. FFG, stick to the card games and board games. I think you're right. It's more of a shift to the to the right or to the left. It's not an up or down or a forward and backwards.
Yeah, I also think something that's looking back. You talked about that conference, and I just it got my mind wondering when was the last time we had a Legion stream, Gen Con stream, right? But I wonder if this lack of streams is just extremely telling of the whole direction changing. Because yes, I know COVID, it sucks. It puts a damper on things. It makes things difficult. But they got to the point where they were doing 2 streams a month. Why couldn't they do 1 weekly? It doesn't require more people to be in the room. It just requires more people to be there at different times. I don't understand financially where the hiccup would be or where logistically that problem would be. But I think looking back on it now, the lack of just monthly Legion streams of just 2 people, even if it was 3 people in that room just talking about a new product. We never got hey, this is something cool. We got Maul and Anakin shown off, but we didn't get something hey, let's play a round with Maul. We never got that. And
remember we did get that for Dooku.
We got that for Dooku.
And we used to even have paint, the little paint tutorials where he would just talk about, John would come on and just talk about his experiences with the modeling and working on different aspects of it. Yeah. We just don't get that anymore.
Not even a Q&A, a monthly Q&A, which I think would be lovely. Even if it was 20 minutes. I just think the lack of community outreach, both streams and articles, should have been telling. It actually kind of gets me upset. I don't know why, but I don't like when companies aren't transparent, and this actually very frustrates me. That this is that all these things are coming into place, and and you had the audacity to fire our boys. I feel okay, this is my feelings now. I feel like mom and dad got a divorce and both of them said they don't want us anymore.
Yeah. See, I feel more like the dog that got taken to the vet, and I was told I'm going to the park, but it just took us a year and a half to get there,
No,
and I'm
no.
waking up on the operating table right now. You know what I mean?
Gosh.
Like it's one of those things where I feel like I look back and I see the signs, but COVID masked it so well.
Yeah.
So I completely understand where you're coming from. I do think you brought up communication, and that's something that I think is actually going to be much better from Atomic Mass. Like, even just finding this, they've put out 2 statements so far about the transition. FFG's put out 1
day to day, like
every single day,
dude.
So
And I
that's
wouldn't
huge.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they put out another one tomorrow.
Oh, you know they will. I
Yeah.
mean, this is big, and they can tell it obviously means something, and I
Yeah.
think they've got something to prove since they are a newer company.
I will say this: if Atomic Mass puts out something again this week, or maybe even next week, just giving us more information, I will live with Aunt Becky for my whole life. Like, if they're that transparent, like, and they show me that they care, I'll give you a shot. I'm gonna give you a shot anyway, but I'll give you more of a shot. I'll give you 2 shots. Bang bang.
You can buy me ice cream when we're on our first
Yeah.
date.
You can ask me to do yard work and I won't complain. But if you turn out to be Count Olaf, I'm gonna strangle you.
Sounds good.
Okay, that's not a threat. I'm not actually being violent.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, I will say it's like I don't know. Does this feel more positive? Because I mean,
dude. I
there
don't
are
know. It's a swirl of
worries.
emotions.
So
You
much.
just heard me say I was really pissed and I threatened to kill someone.
But she also said that you're like a kid. It's like fine, I'll eat my pudding.
Yeah, it's like I wanted chocolate. I guess I'll have banana.
Yeah.
Oh.
I will say this. This is something I'm super worried about, and they better not change it. Organized play for
Oh,
me
thank
is
you.
extremely important
Glad you brought this up.
because we know that they do their game night packages. So it's like, hey, show up, play a scenario or 2, and have fun with your community. FFG does that already. They give their free promos, their
Yeah.
cards, their awards and stuff. So if you want to do Pate Nights, but there's a community feeling about, hey, so and so is world champ.
Yeah.
They are literally the best. Like when you have those metrics to measure by, it creates a bigger feeling in the community.
Yeah.
And like
Well, it's not that they're the best. It's just
Yeah.
that they have the best dice, really.
they were able to microwave them and not get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like there's a sense of going to big tournaments. Like 40K is great, but the ITC is not run by Games Workshop. So I know for some people in the community that takes away from the legitimacy of it, but when the company that makes the game throw these events together, it gives a legitimacy to what you're doing, and it really feels good. I hope they don't take that away.
Agreed. And I would actually be even more miffed, and I'll tell you this. I will love playing this game for years to come. Anyone that comes into the shop and is like, yo, you want to play a game of Legion? I'll play with you.
Down.
But for the first time ever in this game's life that we've played, so a year and a half almost, today I considered not buying any more product. And that's not because I'm trying to be doom and gloom, but it's like I was like maybe because I was planning on buying 2 AATs this upcoming week, so I can start putting together my my horny tits list with Maul, and I decided no, I'm not going to buy AATs this week. I'm not going to buy Maul this week. I'm going to let more people get Maul. But then I was like, do I even want Anakin? And I'm not, like I said, I'm really trying not to be doom and gloom about this, but it was like, should I just wait before I spend my money? And this also ties into something Matt knows about me these last couple of weeks. I've just been burnt out on spending money. I hate spending money now for some reason. It's like a weird trigger that just happened. Right? Maybe it was just because I was going all in on Legion. I was buying Empire AT or ATST. I wish I could buy AT. Hey, maybe now it'll happen.
Yeah, like they'll find a way.
I was buying like all the cool things that I wanted just so I can run a list if I wanted to play that unit. And then I think maybe it just like collapsed on itself. But I don't know. But what I'm saying is for the first time today, I considered not buying more Legion product simply because I didn't know if I wanted to continue supporting it. You know? I don't know if they, and this ties into what you were saying, because if they drop competitive play, if they drop the community support that they have done so far, and they just go to quarterly community play days with some cool cards for Killmonger or Obi-Wan in this case, I think I'm done. Like, not in the sense of like I won't play the game, but I think I'm done buying every release. I think, this new unit comes out that I probably really only would play with once. Nah, I'll pass. Ahsoka's coming out? Great, I'll buy her. Like, oh, cool. Mace Windu or Yoda? Awesome. Oh.
Mud Troopers?
Nah.
Nah.
Yeah, even though that's something like 2 months ago, I'd been like, yes, Mud Troopers, that's so cool.
You bring up such an interesting point. As we talked about this actually with the Brandon with Xbox. You said the same thing where when that happens, there's not really a reason to keep buying in. And so it's an interesting financial decision that hurts the game long term.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm the sole provider, but if enough people think like that, then yeah, you're exactly right. And that's a good analogy too. It's like the new Xbox. Like a lot of people are going crazy for it, and I'm happy. Like I love Xbox. I love me some Halo. But I didn't buy an Xbox on launch day for the first time in my life. Why? Because I didn't see a point. Not until Halo's out, And I think that exact same thought process is what was going through my mind. I don't know if I want to buy Anakin. Why? Because Legion may be a totally different game in a year. It may not even play the way I love it for, They may change it so drastically. I hope that's what they mean in this article when they say like they understand there's a devout community, and I hope they get that and they know that if they did change Legion significantly, a lot of people would just leave. I think more people would come, sure. Like you have the Star Wars license, it's a miniatures game, you're gonna do fine. But I think its core audience of who has been here these last 2-3 years is just. I think they're gonna get burnt out. I honestly never thought I'd be saying this, like I'm considering not. I'm considering to consider, right?
Yeah, like
I love this game. I'm not going to stop playing.
Like you can't say that you didn't think about it,
right?
Because it's already crossed your mind.
That's exactly it.
You never thought that would enter your mind,
right? Exactly. Before. It's not that I plan on it at all. I still very much love this game, but yeah, like you said, for the first time, I thought about doing it. Just like what if I did, And I would have never thought I would even think of that. I don't know.
It makes me think of I keep saying X-Wing 2nd Edition, but I think there's a lot to learn from games just from that experience there, where a ton of people were so burnt on 1st Edition for whatever reason, for rules changes, for all this, for this and that, and this and that. And then when the idea for 2nd Edition came out, I do personally, I will say this, I think 2nd Edition X-Wing is much better than 1st Edition. It's handled a lot better. Doesn't feel super busted. Feels great. But I remember that feeling when people went, it's not the same game. It plays differently. All this stuff is happening. The ships that I had that were good are not good anymore. All this is going down. I don't really want to play. And people who are familiar with 40K or even War Machine, they know that's what happens when a new edition comes out. But this
it's an elevated version of Nerf's feel bad.
Yeah, it's completely. And this has potential to be that, but even worse, because it's a whole new studio. Yeah. It's a whole different group. Like, this hasn't really happened before too much with stuff I've seen. I mean, you can look at Pokemon TCG, where it used to be WotC era stuff. And I think we'll kind of see that, where it's like, you've got FFG era Legion stuff. Well, I have the Atomic Mass Games era Legion stuff. And I bet we'll start getting new models, new sculpts, new designs. And I don't know. I'm hoping for the best, but I guess we'll see what happens. That's the only thing I can really say.
Yeah. I guess that's a really good comparison you make. Also, because you compare the Pokemon, of course I like that comparison. You know me too well. But yeah, like when Pokemon Company took over the trading card game by themselves, and Wizards no longer was in charge. That's actually, while I didn't know what was going on, that's why my brothers kind of got out of it. They're like, whoa, I mean, that Wizards is the trading card game company. They know what they're doing. Obviously, Pokemon Company can't do it by themselves. And look at Pokemon Company now; they're so profitable off their card game. I think that's like why I fell out of it though, is because my brothers knew what was going on, and I didn't play anymore because my brothers weren't sharing their cards with me. They weren't giving me their leftovers after they got the good ones. It's pretty much what
just
happened.
Like older brothers should.
Yeah. And I hope that's not what's going to happen to me or anyone that I play with here, or anyone in general, that like, it's Atomic Mass Games now. Nah, I think I'm good. Like, I think this is, because that's another thing. That's what I did with X-Wing. Like once X-Wing 2.0 got announced, I was like, this is a perfect point for me to hop right off. I washed my hands of this. I was annoyed with the meta. I didn't like how much money I was spending on a game that I was getting frustrated with. I'm just going to hop off. And then it turns out 2.0 was very, very cool and like got a lot of people back into the game. I don't want to do that same mistake because like I would hate to get out of something I love just for like a petty reason of like, that's not my OGs, you know?
Yeah.
It's Star Wars. And plus, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but they could literally announce our Republic Commandos next week, and I'll be like, "Yep, you got me."
Back in. You did it. Yeah, I'm back. I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna say that. I just like. I will say that on the positive side of things again, going along with what you're saying, just to build off that, there are good things. Like, you got to give shout outs to AMG for putting out just the sheer magnitude of releases they have in a year with COVID, and they've met their deadlines. They've met them consistently. I do think they could stand to, like one of the biggest complaints I've heard is that they may not be able to keep up that level of production for the other games. And to be honest, I kind of hope they don't. I hope this gives them a chance to scale back Crisis Protocol, but also increase production in other games. Like Armada, I think if you get people with new creative ideas who are fresh, maybe they can breathe some more life into that game. It's a great game. With X-Wing, their release schedule is actually pretty good. I would stay about the same there, maybe a little slower. Legion, Legion hasn't had a bad release schedule, I would say. I would say it's had a very inconsistent schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we should be getting releases quarterly, instead, because of the delays and things, we've really been getting them every 6 months, and it's been massive drops. I would just like a little bit more consistency there, but also I think taking the game in interesting directions would be nice. And I think because they are kind of, I hate to say like a spunky new group, but they are.
They're fresh. They're new meat. Like,
yeah,
it's totally true. And I do like how also like they do have experience with miniature games with that consistency, right? And they just launched the X-Men for Crisis Protocol, so they have experience in like major expansions.
Yeah,
and each
a whole new faction.
Yeah,
per se.
Fundamentally, yeah. And I'm like turning over to the section where the Crisis Protocol stuff is, so I could reference it. But every unit in that, or every mini in that game, isn't too much different from how Legion operates. You have Spider-Man that does this kind of thing, but you also have Miles Morales, Spider-Man, that does similar things. But they're two distinct units that fill two different roles, kind of like how clone Phase 1 units and Phase 2 units, they do similar things, but they fulfill different roles, right? It's not that hard just to keep that same design philosophy when they move to Atomic Mass games, and just like have that idea, like, yeah, we're gonna make these characters distinct and unique, but we're just gonna make 6 to 8 of them instead of just 1. So like they get the game design, they know how it should work, is what I'm saying. They know how a unit should perform, they know what its purpose should be, or at least they know how to get it there, right? And I think that's a huge win on that end. I like how you said maybe they can scale back Crisis Protocol, because I know the players here actually are like, man, I wish sometimes that they would, like, there are some that are like, give me everything as soon as it launches, I can't get enough of it. And then there's others that are like, holy crap, I just had 3 minis that came in last month, I can't keep up.
I was just in last Friday picking up 2 expansions,
right.
And I just picked up 4 boxes of minis, which have 8 different characters. That's like getting...
Imagine having that problem.
Yeah, like it's one of those things we can dream, but I think they've at least... I agree, they've at least proved they can do... they can produce quickly enough and well enough to have entire other factions come out. I think that's where I am a little hopeful for sub-factions. Because as much as I love Alex Davey and Luke Eddy, I will say I did look at the game sometimes, and you and I have talked about this in Double Vision and stuff, but I would have wondered where they would take Scum and Villainy. Like, how do you make them unique? And you would really take probably the X-Wing approach to it. But, like, I look at X-Wing 2nd Edition right now, and Scum and Villainy, they don't really have a place too much in the game, because if you want aces, there's better factions. If you want big ships, sometimes you can find that better. Like, the thing they've got going for them is spammable ships, but Separatists kind of do that better anyway. So it's like...
Yeah.
I do trust AMG can do that. I think that just to sum up my thoughts on the whole thing, like I am cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
But that's really it. Just
Yeah.
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I love
Hoping
that
for the best, expecting the worst.
I love the examples you gave too, because like, well, first and foremost, it's not like we just worship the ground anybody that's ever touched a Legion. We don't worship the ground they walk on. Like, we love Alex and Luke, and we're sad to see them go if that's true that they're leaving. But we have our grievances. We have things we're like, man, I wish this was a little better.
Who hasn't played against Phase 2?
Right, you just brought it up earlier. It's like clones right now are like super popular, or a little bit imbalanced right now, and we've balanced on that seesaw for months now. Of like,
they're
clones,
fine. No, they
but,
suck.
Yeah,
they're
it's like
fine. I hate them.
They're balanced, but not they're not balanced, but they're not quite broken, kind of thing. Which I still don't think they're quite broken, but they're just. It's like, dude, you weigh 40 more pounds than me. Of course you're going to be better at that.
Yeah, like you get punched by a guy that's bigger than you,
Yeah.
you're going to lose.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, and maybe it's maturity that I can acknowledge that now. I don't know. Anyway, what I'm saying, though, is that I'm trying to think how I want to word this. Man, this is really tough. I don't worship the ground they walk on. And because I see that there's opportunity for growth in the game, that's kind of what I'm mostly optimistic for. I'm like, if they could tackle those things, awesome. I by no means want to see them just get rid of things that we like. No one does. But like, maybe this is an opportunity for some fresh hands to get on this property in this game that like really are awesome. And I can't wait to hear more, because like, well, in a couple of weeks when Utah lifts restrictions, we can kind of get more people in here. And I want to start asking the X-Wing players, like, hey, what do you think? Like, what are your takes? Because I just hear from you right now. Because I mean, I don't really consider myself an X-Wing player. I play X-Wing sometimes. I want to ask the Armada guys, hey, what are you thinking? Like, we're only Legions, right? We only talk about that to like as far as an expertise goes. I want to know what the other guys think, because they're affected. Heck, Armada, I wouldn't doubt if Armada people are scared, because it's Armada.
Yeah.
They didn't have a release schedule to begin with.
I don't know. Until the announcement of Clone Wars, people were sure it was either dead or there was a second edition. And now it looks like we're getting 1.5, kind of, but no, I think that's an interesting way to look at it, because I totally get it. Like, you respect and you love what Alex and Luke have done, but you can see where there can be changes made.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad way to look at it. I'd be interested in seeing also what, like, maybe the TCG player people, they don't really care too much, but like, I think you're right. Like the Armada and the X-Wing people, I did actually listen to the Gold Squadron podcast today about it to listen to what they had to say. And they had some interesting points, because I think for them, they've been approaching it more from like the business standpoint of why was this happening. And so I kind of got a vibe from them and everything they said that they're not too worried, but those are the guys at the very tippy top. What's going on just in our local community is probably different than that. And reactions were definitely mixed, just in the Discord alone. Just kind of
very interesting conversations were had on Facebook and Discord.
Very interesting.
But we all want to know what you think, right? Like, you've listened to this podcast all the way up to this point. You dedicated an hour of your time to us and listening to us ramble. I sincerely mean this, not just like a hey, like and subscribe this video, but like, seriously, in the comments, if you're on a platform, if you're listening to this on a platform where you can leave a comment, let us know what you think, because this is just two people talking back and forth, just in front of a microphone. Like, we are very curious to know what you think, and if you aren't on a platform that allows comments, hit us up on Discord. The link is in the description. Definitely let us know what you think, because we are genuinely curious. I dare say I need to know what you think, because I don't want it to be an echo chamber. We could just be spitballing the negative back and forth, or invert. We could just, or the positive. We could just spit back and forth, and that's all we talk about. But it always takes an outside party to introduce a new idea, and so we need that from you, and we rely on it from you. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching or listening or whatever you're doing right now.
Hopefully not watch it, because
That would be really boring to just watch a logo for an hour.
No, it'd be really weird to look around and see that somebody was in the room with us we didn't know. But,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that's true. Hey, you okay over there? Any concluding thoughts from you, Matt?
No, just be positive, be negative, be cautiously optimistic. Just whatever you do, know we'll get through this together in this
What is this,
wonderful world of
COVID?
Legion.
Are you a celebrity telling me that you're going to...
I'm gonna sing a
Gosh, that
terrible
annoys
song
me
and get
so
started.
much. I have not...
I hear that.
We're going to get through this together. What do you mean? I'm not invited to your yacht.
Don't worry, I got a private island.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have a stake in Dubai. Anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for listening. Again, the Discord is in a link in the description below. We can't wait to hear from you guys, and until next time, we'll catch you later.
Bye.